This is Made Up of Wires. We are decompiling Castlevania Symphony of the Night. This is going to be a shorter episode today. I have some scheduling conflicts later in the afternoon and need to end a little bit early. But we should be able to get some work done today. I think I'm going to go back to the Entity Maria cutscene function that we were working on yesterday, but I did want to talk about something that Nate the Great posted yesterday. I was trying to have something prepared today to go over one of the glitches that he has a nice video over on YouTube describing. But I wasn't able to replicate it locally yet. Just timing was my issue. Lots of other things besides SOTN Decompiling in my life. So I will get back to that, and we'll talk a little bit about it at the beginning before we get going. So we're going to be mostly talking about Symphony of the Night decompilation, but this applies to any, a lot of the topics we'll cover apply to any game decompilation. We're looking at PlayStation, PSP, which are both MIPS, but we have other MIPS systems that can be targeted and use a lot of the same assembly language techniques, and other consoles that don't use MIPS. A lot of the tooling and things will be the same. So this is pretty applicable to any game decompilation. Games are a little different from programs that might be something like a DOS or Linux or Windows program. And I talked about that a little bit yesterday. When games are effectively embedded systems, especially these older 16 and 32-bit consoles. And so when a game runs, it really takes over the hardware and does with the hardware what it wants to do. We can't, not all of the decompilation techniques are applicable to both games and programs targeted to a specific operating system versus games targeted to things that are closer to embedded systems. But a lot of the concepts are very similar. Mostly it's just how libraries and files are packed and what the formats of those things are. When we're looking at games and embedded systems, we're really looking at files that are packed very similarly to what their in-memory representation will look like. Whereas when we're targeting operating systems and other things that have protected memory and loaders and other things like that that are part of the operating system, we're looking at more well-defined formats that are portable to various systems. If you want to know more about Castlevania Symphony of the Night decompilation, you can go to soten.z.dev, where we have progress for the current methods and functions that are being decompiled. We were working on weapons previously, and Roaming, who is a frequent member of the chat on the stream, has finished off one of the 3 remaining functions there, and so I'm looking forward to seeing that PR soon. And we'll be down to 2, leaving just weapon 30 remaining to decompile. So Biz Murphy's comment, a native PC port. It would be awesome to go from I was going to say BIOS. That ages me. What is the what is the current bootloader that I'm drawing a blank. But anyway, yeah, going right to hardware would be awesome. Replace your init with I guess not even init. Replace your whole kernel. Yes, EFI. Thank you, Orkim. Good to see you. Yeah, you could compile it actually as a EFI driver. and run it directly, maybe targeting Visa or some other graphic standard. So we're going to be looking at the Maria cutscene. I was going yesterday and kind of re-decompiling this fresh. I did look at the dupes, and this is a 94% match with one of the cutscenes that is in the center stage, as well as NZ0. And so I'm going to look at that and apply that. We actually get a pretty close match with that applied. A lot of the referenced global arrays are going to be different and will need to be cleaned up. But that might be a better starting point to avoid redoing a lot of the work that was there. Let's see if there's any other progress. That Maria Clockroom cutscene is really close to being done. I was looking at the duplicates there, the other ones, and it looks like many of those can be knocked out pretty quick as well. Yeah, welcome, Frostbite. Good to have you here. Yeah, a lot of love on YouTube, which is fun. Different crowd on YouTube. I'm talking about you, YouTube people. But a lot of interesting comments. I mentioned yesterday, did some audio checking and tweaking, and that was thanks to people on YouTube. And hopefully that's better for everybody. So I do want to talk about Nate the Great's stream, and let me see if I have any of these wikis open. So if you want to check this out, I'll post a link to this as well. I'm probably not going to play the video on the stream, but feel free to here. I'll post a link in chat and link to it when I post this on YouTube as well. So this is the arbitrary code execution glitch. And the reason that I didn't have anything set up, it requires a save corruption glitch to get the state set in a way that you can start executing the rest of the glitch. And Nate does a really good job of going through setting up all the prerequisites and then getting into the arbitrary code execution portion. And let me see if any of my notes are good to kind of share. So the basics of this glitch are that you've corrupted the sort menu in the inventory. Oh, my, sorry, this, sometimes when I restart OBS, I don't get, the window capture doesn't work as expected. So let me fix my windows and then I'll keep going. All right, sorry about that. In the steps prior to where Nate's video starts off, current weapon count is it is 3. It sounds like there is a PR that's going to be coming either later today or in the next couple days that'll bring it down to 2. Roaming, who shows up in chat quite a bit, has finished off weapon 17, and I think has both a PSP and PlayStation match. So in Nate the Great's video here, he has done the save glitch, and so when you go into the inventory and go to sort, so you've selected the weapon that you want to change, and then you hit square, you'll get a sort menu, and that sort menu becomes corrupted, and every entry in the sort menu becomes the short sword, which is the one-handed sword weapon type or kind is what we call it in the SOTN Decomp codebase. So when that corruption happens, there's some additional steps, but effectively you'll look for a weapon of that type, which is, I believe, hex 19, or sorry, no, decimal 19, hex 13. Based on some other factors, that won't be found, and the search for that weapon will overflow into other memory. Shortly after your inventory is the data for the current clock that's appearing, and so one of the interesting things about the glitch is if you have any of a handful of numbers in the hour, minute, or second field of the clock, it'll find that and not overflow correctly. But eventually it will overflow into one of the pointers that's set to one of the callbacks for the sound functions. And unfortunately, I didn't write which sound function that was, but it is one of the lib sound functions in the PlayStation 1 SDK. Takes a array of callback pointers, and one of those pointers, or part of that array, exists immediately after this inventory, and so you can glitch this search so that it finds that pointer, and you're able to manipulate that value. And so what in the case of Nate the Great's video, so this work is based on sock folder Twitch streams, which unfortunately no longer exist. He was able to tweak that value so that it jumps into the Draw Relics menu code. And then through some other tweaks is able to manipulate some of the values there to change various instructions. And his video goes into what the end result of those changes are, but using like a MIPS decoder or something like that, you can actually see that it's going from a subtract to an add or an or, depending on the last bits of that value. And so because that instruction changes, some branching logic below changes, and things kind of proceed from there. I enjoyed the video quite a bit and definitely want to come back and walk through the code, because now I think, except for maybe the save glitch, we might actually have as well. But most of the rest of the code we actually have, and can walk through the code for these as well. I do want to point out, I added a comment here. Like I said before, if you have certain values in the clock, because the search for the inventory sort is looking for specific things, it will stop at the clock before getting to this sound callback. And it seems unintentional, but Nate says that he hit this condition and so he was clock blocked, which that was one of the funniest things I've heard in a while. And he acknowledges it afterwards too, which was fun. So yeah, hopefully we'll get back to that. The glitches look like a fun thing to do, especially now that we have the code. We should be able to jump into some of that, the cases that are causing that arbitrary code execution. What's interesting as well is the it doesn't work on the PowerPC version or the possibly not the Saturn version either. I'm not exactly sure if it doesn't work on the Saturn version yet, but I would be interested to see, is it the something about the Microsoft compiler that's preventing that overflow from happening, or is there something else that maybe locations in memory? the Xbox 360 has an operating system, and so it's possible that I don't know, address space randomization or other things like that prevent knowing specifically where values will be in memory. There's a lot more security, obviously, with the Xbox 360 than there was with the PlayStation. All right, so let's keep going with this Entity Maria cutscene change. I was at only around 17%, and when we pulled this in yesterday, there's quite a bit of types that the decompiler wasn't able to resolve, and other things like that. When we look at the duplicates report, we do see that it is extremely similar to the Holy Glasses cutscene in the center stage. Also, the Entity Death cutscene, that's actually closer than the NZ0 one. So maybe we'll look at that one. The Entity Holy Glasses cutscene, I couldn't find a scratch for. But this one in N03 is closer than the NZ0 in terms of a match. So let's look for that and see if that still exists. It doesn't. Let me look for it by memory address. Oh no, my Stream Deck is not working. So I'll have to do this manually. So I'm going to grab this offset, and I'm going to assume that this originally was decompiled with the offset name, which may or may not be a got it. So Bismurphy's saying that he didn't necessarily create separate scratches for them, which is fair. So we'll go with this one. The Entity Maria cutscene from Sen is here with 99%. So we're going to take this, see how close the match is. All of these arrays, which are I believe animation offsets, we'll see what they are, but they're all going to be wrong. Those symbols are going to be wrong, and so we'll have to clean those up. But we'll focus mostly on the logic and try to find the logic. There's one of the cases that we were looking at yesterday, which was here, which was pulling in a bunch of temporary variables and then falling through to this main logic that we should be able to get past, which may help a lot. And the method, or the implementation itself, seems quite a bit shorter than what the decompiler gave us, so maybe we'll be able to make a little progress there. So we do get around 94% match starting off. And we're going to have differences, and I'm not overly concerned there. So in this case, what I really want to do is leverage the work that's been done already, so that we can get to a faster decompile. I could go through and take the time, and it might take a couple hours to do this from scratch. But I think from a stream perspective and from a project perspective, it makes more sense to start with a foundation that we know is matching. And we can also pull in the PSP side as well and leverage that. There's several weeks of streams now where we are decompiling things from scratch. So we don't have to do that every time. We can rely on the work of others and kind of stand on the shoulders of giants at times. No hubris here for having to start from scratch. So I'm going to work kind of top down. We have a nice foundation. We have most things named, or everything should be named. I like the bit shifty. So we'll go through and try to find the differences now. I'm not going to worry about the difference in these symbol names above, because I know that they will be different, but we can come back and figure those out later. They'll be pretty obvious down here. All of the symbols that we've been given for this new offset have a D_US prefix, and so they'll be relatively easy to find, versus the ones like GAPI or some of the other globals that exist outside of this particular overlay. All right, so I want to start here on line 26. We have a relatively large conditional statement, and then there is a mask in the original that we don't have here, and that looks like it's from pad start. So the original was comparing against pad start, and this one looks like it's masking against pad start, and if the mask works. So that's interesting. I'd be interested to go back in to the other one and see if that is the same or not. No, it's not. So interesting difference between the two. So this is when we mask a symbol like this, we're basically saying, I don't care about any other buttons that might be currently pressed. Is the start button being pressed? And so for this particular cutscene, you could jam all the buttons and then hit start, and it would. This is probably the skip logic. Whereas this scene from I forget which one this was now. I think it's the NZ0. You have to press start individually. Curious. All right, so let's keep going. That was an easy tweak. Down here on line 49, we're doing some additional logic here. So we're loading castle flags. I know I did see a commit recently where it looks like many of these castle flags are now pulled out into an enum, and so we're doing that check, but it doesn't look like the original did, or this version of the cutscene did this check. So oops, what did I do here? We're only checking the player character. And I am going to assume, I mentioned this, I think, the other stream, a lot of these unsigned 8-bit variables that are used, oh, this is a 32 though. I was going to say that maybe this is just an implicit check here, but we'd have to check the PSP version for that. Oh, I missed a mask. That could be. Yes, thank you. So this is one of those cases where I was mentioning before, this is a global that is probably defined in DRA and not local to this overlay, so it's gonna match regardless. Appreciate the help. So these are interesting, and I like finding these when doing duplicates. Down here on line 44, we have an immediate difference. The original was called cutscene run, and this one's, you know, just the address offset func 801 B798A. Often I'll take this opportunity to go find that function and add the symbol for it or rename the function. So we can look at Boss Maria, and it's not there. Oh, duh. It was named, sorry. It was named in the original assembly. So somebody has gone back since Biz Murphy's original other Maria cutscene and named that. And we have the symbol available to us, so we can use that symbol, and that will help later on. So we have a branch down here on line 47 that's different. So those will work out as the instructions are matching below. I'm not terribly concerned about that at the moment. There's a move here. And it looks like it is bringing in this S2 as the argument for oh no, it's not. It's hey, roaming. Thank you again for the Weapon 17 work. That's awesome. So in this case, we've been talking about this in Discord a bit. So when branch executions, or when branch instructions are executed, there's an additional instruction below called the delay slot. And so this move of S2 into register A0 will happen regardless of whether this branch jumps to offset 10.8c or whether it continues down. What's interesting in this case is that if it does continue down, the A0 register is going to be overwritten and that value is obliterated, but the compiler decided that that was something that it could put there, and the side effects would be fine regardless of which side of the branch it took. So how that move is done is going to depend on code further down in this branch. And we don't have anything else down there, so it's a little curious that we could see where that's jumping to. Yeah, it is jumping to the end. So why it wants to load A0 down there is kind of an odd choice. Not something I'm going to spend too much time worrying about, though. So we don't need to worry about the offset. That will work itself out. We'll continue on. So some of these we can fix up. These are things that, again, have been given names since the original was done a few months ago. So things like cutscene flags, we should be able to fix that. These are... I'm not going to worry too much about the ones that are specific to this overlay, just the globals. In this case, so this is one that we may be able to fix. This G dialog symbol, our original has just a local offset here, but it does look like the common symbol name is this G dialog. So let's look at this. This is one of the funny ones. I think that was basically it looks like a bunch of overlapping data, but they're all given unique symbols. So yeah, the SPSS, this is uninitialized data. I want to see where or how gdialog looks in other overlays. Oh, we got a lot. So it is, yeah, it is just uninitialized data here. So we should be able to add that symbol. And I'm not going to worry about extracting the BSS or SPSS data right now. Roaming actually had some comments about that in Discord. When we're decompiling, do we need to get all the data and convert all that to C as well? For the most part, I won't include data unless including the data is not terribly invasive. In the other function that we decompiled for the Maria cutscene a couple days ago, that file was extracted into, or that function ended up being extracted into a separate file. It would have been relatively easy to take all the data that was associated with that file at that point and pull that into C as well. Let's see, what do I want to do here? So I'm going to add this here, but often there's offsets that you need to determine and other things that are potentially going to complicate the PR. Oh no, yeah. Thank you for the comment about. That's OBS again. All right, so I've gone through and basically just added a gdialog symbol and mapped that symbol here. This is a much less invasive change, and if I would re-extract this assembly now, this symbol would be mapped properly. I'm not going to do that at the moment, though. Hey, Tux can play. All right, so let's keep going down. So again, we have our offset for this jump, which is the end of this switch, is going to be incorrect, and that's okay. We need to find the symbols. I'm going to go through and do a find and replace with all of these because this is going to come up over and over. Do a replacement. Okay, so continuing on, again, we have symbol differences between the original and ours. Not concerned about that. So now on line 71, finally, we have some differences here. They're register differences. Unless there's something obvious, like a register that's specifically being used for a different field or a different variable that's in place. For V0 and V1, these are used for temporary variables, and they're not really under the control of us when we're directly. We might be able to implicitly change them by changing some ordering or structure. I might look at this A1 and A2, however, and just make sure that these are the same variable throughout. It does look like that is scoped just to this particular area of the function. So I'm not going to worry about those either. As other things change, the compiler will reevaluate how to assign registers. One thing that is possibly worth looking at is whether next character needs to be a separate variable or not. We have a couple cases where we're using multiple next characters, but I don't see at the moment those overlapping. Let's jump to the bottom of this switch and see if that makes a difference. It's being overwritten here. So my guess is that next char2 probably can go away, and that was just an oversight in the original. And it maybe in the final code, maybe that one was gone. Oh, interesting. Here it is. The value is chosen again, so it's possible that that one is necessary. Let's try getting rid of it though and see what happens. I would trust Bismorphy in general with making the right choice here. So if there was a reason to break this out separately. So we're at 9442. Too far. And 9445. So yeah, that probably needs to be. That probably needs to be a separate variable. There may be some consolidation that could be done here. By just reading this value directly, as opposed to storing it in a separate variable, but it's minor. I think you'd have to look at the PSP version to determine whether that needs to be a separate variable or not. I mention this frequently on the stream, but for GCC, you need to look at whether or not something is being... if you read an address from memory outside of the function, you can relatively reliably cache that value on the stack or in a register and continue to use it without having to worry about that value changing, unless there are writes to other things like there are here. And then GCC is going to say, I don't know that this primitive pointer is not an alias to whatever you read here. And so I don't trust that value in memory anymore, and I'm going to have to reload it. Whereas if you pull it into a local variable, now that's copied into whatever the context is of this function, and now you don't have to worry about reading it from memory again. If we went back to the PSP version, the PSP doesn't, in its non-optimized form, doesn't make any of those assumptions or guarantees. And so it'll always, if you are referencing the field for this struct or pointer, it will always go back out and read that value, even though it's more expensive, because it's not optimized. So roaming's mentioned in Weapon 17. There are some nested loops there, and so as convention goes, you might use your incrementing variable I in the outer loop and j in the inner loop. And it sounds like there was an outer loop that used j instead of I, which then would get the registers to match. Definitely curious, but that's the fun of working through other people's code. So let's keep going and see if there's anything else obvious that we can find. Down on line 88, we're using cutscene unknown 4. I will try to get to some code differences as opposed to just these immediate differences, because those are more interesting. So here we have a difference in the draw mode. So here we're, oh no, it's not the draw mode. It's, well, that's curious. Is this draw flags? Let me open that up off screen. So we're looking at offset 32 and so offset 34. That is draw mode. So why are we loading offset 36? Oh, because of my own stupidity. Do I have an extra pointer in here? I do. My context was set up for the PSP, which may help a bunch. So that fixes that. So this was an offset into the, on this line here, the draw mode. When we're dealing with primitives, the PSP has an additional 4 bytes near the beginning of the structure, so everything else is shifted by 4. If you look at the how this header is defined, we have macros around it to account for this case specifically. However, when M2C runs and is doing the decompilation, it does not like having those macros in the context, and so often I'll delete them, but then depending on how my context gets saved between PSP and PlayStation 1, sometimes that gets out of sync. So continuing on, we have more differences in immediates. Yeah, thank you, Biz Murphy. We have another one of these on line 147 regarding the cutscene name. And then on line 151, the argument 0 register is being masked in the original, whereas ours is not. And why might that be? Oh, it's, yeah. So it is, I is a 32-bit value. For whatever reason, we want to ensure that what's getting passed to this function is a 16-bit value, or just the 16 bits, inner 16 bits. We don't have a declaration for that function. The function name is wrong. Maybe I have the wrong version of that. I would be interested in seeing if making that a 16-bit argument will do that implicitly. It doesn't. So what was there was correct. So we're masking this to the bottom 16 bits. More cases of G dialog. Again, I think that's correct in ours versus the assembly that I had pulled where it's not correct. Offset differences, not worried about those. 232, we have a cutscene difference. So here's another one, another symbol that hasn't been mapped. Oh no, it has been mapped, but I don't have it mapped properly. So we'll replace any references there to cutscene flags. So down on line 300, we have, again, some register differences. We'll keep going and find, there likely is going to be some code differences, and yeah, finally we got to those on line 323. So we should have this defined in the context. We are checking it against, or we're looking for 0 versus not 0. And then we are adding 2 to the same value. Yep. This may be an increment. It is not. Oh, sorry. No, that's incorrect. Let's look at this a little closer. So if so up on 316, we're looking at cutscene flags, and we're adding 2 to cutscene flags. Does that seem reasonable? No, next char dialog. Let me look at what this pointer is. Is a char. And we're storing this off into a value that is going to be used. Oh, we're storing it back here. So the continue is our branch. We're going to be doing this loop again. Let me look here, line 317. I don't think that's quite right, but that, yeah, it's just a plus plus. All right. Yeah, I mentioned this, dig down deep, I mentioned this earlier. When, for MIPS, branches, branch instructions, the instruction immediately afterwards will always be executed, regardless of where the branch, which side of the branch takes place. So we can get some kind of funny ordering in the instructions that we don't necessarily expect, because we expect this branch here to either execute this or not, but it's always going to execute the 323. All right, so that looks like it worked. Going down 332. So here's another one of these cases. It's the same idea. We have a branch here, and regardless of what side of the branch we take, we're going to execute the next instruction. In this case, the original is setting up our it looks like changing A0. We have to look down here now what A0 might be. We are ultimately storing the value of S5 as our next char dialog value. And so we need to go back through and figure out what S5 was. And I don't see it being set. So S5 is the top of our stack, or I guess the bottom of our stack, the closest thing to the frame. So let's look at these differences first. So there's some ordering differences here that may be able to help. Where's this move image function? The way the arguments are getting set between the two is the ordering is different. So these arguments are getting pulled up above and loaded into their appropriate registers before this, before these rectangle fields are being set. Not sure if this separate variable is necessary here. We'll try that. I didn't prefer that. I may come back to this. It does look like there probably is. Let's look at this here. So in the original, we're looking at the value in argument or register A0 and pulling its 0th field, which is this next char dialog. Whereas in our code here, we're checking the value of next char. These are similar, but not necessarily the same. So let's try pulling that next char dialog reference down. and we have to dereference. No, that changes things quite a bit. Let's see if we can figure out what... Is that what A0 was? I'm sorry, I read these backwards often. When we're doing a store, we're taking the... Are we taking the value from V0 and storing it into offset A0? Or inverse? I believe that this is the AT&T syntax, right? Which is back, or no, which one is backwards? AT&T or Motorola? I think it's AT&T that's backwards. When I say backwards, I mean the instructions aren't necessarily in the order that you expect them to be in. Often anyway, I won't go into too much commentary there. Yeah, so there are these stack values that are messed up. Let me look at the decomp down here and see if that provides any hints. So we see a relatively similar setup here. So we're checking against 20, which is, I believe, is a space. Yeah. So I'd probably write it like that. There are separate variables, though, for temp A0 and temp A1. So we can go back through and... is Intel the backwards one? That could be. I get them confused. So temp A0, let's find where that's being set. Oh, it's just a 16-bit version of temp A1. And that is the next char. I don't see anything else really that's differentiating these. So the decompiler did put this last argument in line. I'm gonna keep going from there, and I'll come back to that later. I don't like to spend too much time on any one section when going through these live. I don't know if people comment in chat if you like seeing me stare at at things and try to work through some of these. I'm happy to, but at the same time, I don't want to waste time when there could be other things that could be resolved. So there's a bunch of these that I think will be resolved. So we're looking at various offsets of the stack pointer as opposed to I see why the decompiler did what it did. So the decompiler took a pointer to this rect, which is up here just as a stack value. And we could see where the decompiler did that. So we want a rect pointer. Actually, we don't have it. And the decompiler wasn't sure where it came from either. It just said somehow this value got into S5. That's because that's where it ended up being on the stack, and it kind of implicitly was put into register S5 when the stack was being set up at the preamble of the function. So why is it being treated as a pointer in the original as opposed to offsets at the stack in ours? Maybe due to register pressure. We could make a pointer to it and do the same thing. We could do that inline here and see if that makes any difference. I would have to look at the original as well. We could do that. We could go look at this other variant and see what is happening there, and if this ends up generating that same pointer style offsets. It does. So here we're loading, it's explicitly loading the offset from this. Oh no. No, it's not. It's different. So this is more similar to the code that we're generating, where values are being loaded, but then they're being written back to the stack based on offsets of the stack pointer. Whereas in the function that we have, it appears to be treating this as a pointer, and then writing back to reference to that pointer. We can create a pointer and try it and see if that does anything for us. I don't think this rect is used elsewhere. So it'd be kind of silly to have a separate variable specifically for it. But we could try it. That's disgusting. So that worked. I'm glad I tried it. Yeah, that's bizarre. Let's pull that assignment down because it's not used elsewhere. That might not end up working the same. It doesn't. Oh, that's bizarre. All right, joy. We'll keep going. Again, I'm not worried about the differences between this overlay and the other overlay this code came from. I just want to find any other differences here. So this one's interesting. Down on line 391. The original, so when we allocate primitives, if that allocation fails for some reason, often what happens is the entity itself is destroyed, so that basically its life cycle is terminated and we don't have to worry about that anymore. In this case, though, Oh, maybe it still is being destroyed, but we're jumping. No, it's not. So here we're jumping to 108C, which is the end of the... so can we can't just break. Oh no, 108C is destroy entity. Something else is happening that is preventing this code from being pulled out as common code, which typically happens. So we do want to destroy the entity there when the allocation fails. However, something else is preventing that from being pulled out into something common, and it looks like it's probably related to this ending section below, and I think it's the ordering here. Let's move that to the very end. So those match now, and that probably matched on line 391 as well. Yeah, that cleaned up that, so we're jumping to the right location. And so we just have a little bit of mess down here to clean up now, and it looks like this function will be mostly done. I have a hard stop soon, so I may not be able to finish off today. So we have a reference here to settings versus the one we're decompiling is setting some flags in time attack control, or calling this time attack control function. I'm going to grab that from the mechanical decompilation. And actually this whole section might be better off coming from there, because it looks like this is one area that is diverging. It looks like these castle flags are not being set, but we can double check that. Yeah, I don't see those. Or an equivalent there. Like above, we have a different flag that we're checking. And I think what's left is just the immediate values. We have another symbol that hasn't been mapped yet, that needs to be mapped. Everything else, let's go from top to bottom again and see. Oh, not quite. So this doesn't like it doesn't like me setting this pointer, but it wants the pointer down below. So let's go back to the other code and see now that everything else is in place, if I take out those the reference to the pointer, oops, is it going to... Oh, did I mess that up? No. Okay, we're getting warning about cutscene 2. Let's make that a const. I think if I remember correctly from yesterday that this had the wrong signature in the code base, so we'll have to go back through. I think it's taking a sign 32 instead of a pointer. We'll have to fix that up as well. Alright, so looking at this rect pointer, oops, down on 339, I want to I'm going to convert that back to struct access, and we'll see if the compiler is going to do the right thing and generate code as if it was accessing a through pointer. And if that's the case, then we just have to clean up those symbol differences. Oh, you jerk of a compiler. It's not happy with that. All right, so let's see if there's other ways that we can coerce the compiler into giving us a reference to register S5. Like I said, I don't in the original assembly, there's no other explicit store to that register. So it does look like it's being set in that stack setup and otherwise not being used. It is kind of a bummer place to be stuck at. I'm gonna hit a time limit soon, and I'm gonna have to end the stream. And it's a sad way to end the stream if we can't figure out why we can't reference the stack value directly. We do have some other stack differences though, and that may or may not be related. We could try getting, I noted before that this vchord, was it vchord? Down on 339 where this other stuff was happening near move image. This is not being, or the decompiler thought that this was being done in line. So we can do the same thing there. Does that help with our stack at all? It did. Let's look at it again. No, it didn't. I lied. Yeah, we still have 4 additional, or sorry, 8 additional bytes on the stack that we need to figure out and get rid of. One of those could be the pointer that I made to do that hack. Yeah, cliffhanger for Monday. Unfortunately, I'll probably look at this later this afternoon and say, "Oh, duh, it was it was the stupid thing," and then submit a PR, and I'll never talk about it again. But I can come back to it. Hey, Zynamo, awesome to have you in chat today. I do want to. I'll call out Zynamo. Zynamo is the originator of this project. We're all submitting to his GitHub repo, and he's our fearless leader. So awesome to have you here. What I mentioned earlier about these symbol offices. So this was a duplicate that I took the scratch from for the Entity Maria cutscene in NZ0. One of the other Entity Maria cutscenes. I know that there's going to be differences between the symbols from that and the symbols from this overlay. I'm going to fix those offline. And where there are things that are not mapped yet, I'll add the mappings to those in the symbol table for this overlay. Yeah, unfortunately, my time is up. So I will leave it on a cliffhanger. We'll figure that out. It looks like a relatively small thing. Like I said, it looks like there's some slight differences in the stack. I see that there is, for example, a 2-byte offset here versus the original. which means that we might have a 16-bit value or need a 16-bit value where there is a 32-bit value being used. That may be one of the issues. I can pop one of those in and see. Otherwise, I'll go through some troubleshooting standard things and just swap some things around and try to find what that might be. So if you want to know more about, we were decompiling the entity Maria cutscene function of the Maria cutscene in the clock room, which is one of the new overlays that was just committed over the weekend and is very close to being finished already in Castlevania Symphony of the Night. If you want to know more about the Castlevania Symphony of the Night decompilation project, go to soten.z.dev, where you'll see the progress, find a link to the GitHub repo, and if you're watching on YouTube, this code might already be checked in. You'll see the link to the Discord server as well, where there's a lot of conversation about this overlay, because it's the current thing that current hotness in the Decomp project. Some awesome wiki additions for creating new overlays. If they all go this quick, maybe this will be done sooner than I expect. I think my estimate, and it seems like a lot of the estimates, at least a year out. So if people say, when will it be done? Well, when will it be done? I would not expect anything sooner than a year. So don't look forward to playing the 64-bit PC version by Christmas or anything like that. Yeah, join us on the Discord server. Lots of interesting conversation about decompiling, Symphony of the Night, ROM hacks, modding, things like that. I will be back on Monday, and I will be streaming on Tuesday as well, but then I will be taking a break until probably the following Wednesday. So a week or so I'll be taking a break from streaming, but I will come back and hopefully remember to update the schedule and talk about that again. Always happy to have everybody in chat. Really enjoy interacting with everybody while we're going through this, and I'll see you all on Monday. Adios.